my neighbor said. Want to see my garden? But she was the real secret bloom. I should have said no. Or at least, I should have hesitated. But when she leaned over the fence, her voice low, almost conspiratorial. Want to see my garden? The word yes slipped out before I could think. She smiled like she'd been expecting that. Her name is Claire. My neighbor. Mid-40s, quiet, the kind of woman who carries herself like she's always 2 steps away from disappearing into her own thoughts. I'd only waved at her a few times before, from across the driveways, awkward half-hellos that never went further. I never thought she noticed me. But that afternoon she did. The gate creaked as she pushed it open, motioning me in. The garden wasn't what I expected. Not neat rows or tidy pots, but a kind of wild beauty, roses climbing up broken trellises, herbs pushing through cracked stone, vines tangled like they'd grown without permission. The air smelled of soil, faint lavender, something damp and alive. It's a mess, she said, brushing her palms together. Her nails carried traces of dirt she hadn't managed to scrub out. It's not, I answered too quickly. It feels honest. Her eyes flicked toward me, holding for a second longer than necessary. She didn't reply. I followed her down the narrow path, careful not to brush against her shoulder. She moved slowly, as though each step cost her a decision. Every now and then, she bent to touch a leaf, or paused by a bloom, but it wasn't the plants she was watching, it was me, in glances she probably thought I didn't notice. We stopped at the far corner, where the sun fell soft and uneven through branches overhead. A weathered wooden bench waited there, its paint peeling into thin curls. She lowered herself onto it, smoothing her skirt, and gestured to the space beside her. I sat. Too close? Too far? I couldn't tell. My knee brushed the edge of the bench, restless. Her hands stayed folded in her lap, still streaked faintly with earth. She caught me looking and pulled them tighter together. You're in school, right? She asked. Yeah. Almost finished. Good, she murmured. Then silence stretched thin. I could hear everything, the rustle of leaves, the faint hum of bees, my own pulse kicking harder than it should. She tilted her face toward the light, eyes half closed, and for the first time I noticed the fine lines there. Not flaws, more like traces of everything she'd survived. I wanted to ask why she'd invited me in. I didn't. Instead, I said, Do you sit out here often? Her lips curved, not quite a smile. Only when I want to remember things. Good things? Another pause. She breathed in slow, let it go slower. Not always. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and she shifted, as though catching herself reveal more than she meant. She reached down, plucked a stray weed from between the stones, and tossed it aside. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pressed against us, heavy enough that I could feel the weight of what neither of us said. Her shoulder brushed mine then, barely, maybe by accident. She didn't move away. I don't know how long we sat like that, long enough for the air to cool, for shadows to stretch across the garden. When she finally stood, I rose too quickly, nearly knocking my knee against the bench. She noticed, and this time her smile was clearer, softer. Come by again, she said, opening the gate for me. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even an invitation. It was something else. And I knew I would. I didn't plan on seeing her the next day. Or the one after. But I found myself walking past her gate more often than I should have, slowing down just in case. And when she stepped outside, watering can in hand, she caught me. You're early, she said. Early for what? Her smile bent crooked. For pretending you weren't waiting. I laughed, too fast, too defensive, and she just turned back toward her roses. She didn't press the point, but it hung there, unspoken, like she'd already seen through me. That afternoon, she let me carry bags of soil into her shed. The space was cramped, dusty, filled with the scent of wood and earth. When I set the last bag down, she leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You don't have to keep helping me, she said. I don't mind. She tilted her head, as though weighing that answer. Then quieter. You remind me of someone. I wanted to ask who, but she didn't give me the chance. Instead, she brushed past me, the sleeve of her sweater grazing my arm. A soft contact, but it lingered long after she'd gone. Later, on the bench again, I tried to fill the silence. Were you married? Her body stiffened almost imperceptibly. She looked at her hands instead of me. Once. Long ago. Kids? She shook her head, sharp, like the question stung. Then, softer, almost to herself. No. Just me. I nodded, not sure what to say. She gave me nothing more, and I knew better than to push. I thought of telling her about the girl I dated last year, how she left me for someone older, more certain, less restless. But the words tangled before they reached my mouth. With Claire, every truth felt dangerous, like if I revealed too much, the space between us would collapse into something neither of us could escape. The danger was already there, of course. Everyone would see it, me, 23, stumbling through the start of life. Her, mid-40s, carrying the kind of grace that only comes with time. A neighbor. Twice my age. Someone I should respect from a distance. And yet, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she thought I wasn't looking. The way her sweater slipped at the shoulder when she leaned forward, bearing a line of skin I couldn't stop noticing. The way she laughed, low and hesitant, like she'd forgotten how until now. I kept my eyes away too often, afraid she'd catch me watching. She always did. That evening, as the sun dipped low, she poured us both a glass of wine, the bottle half empty already. Don't tell anyone, she said, handing me the glass. Your secret's safe. Good, she murmured. Then she sat closer than usual, close enough that her knee brushed mine. I didn't move. We talked, about nothing, about books I hadn't read and music she didn't think I'd know. She was right, I didn't. But I liked the way her voice softened when she spoke of them. At one point she leaned in, pointing out a bird on the fence. Her breath brushed my cheek, warm, unsteady, and I forgot the bird entirely. I don't know if she noticed the way my hand twitched, as though reaching for hers but stopping short. I don't know if she meant it when she let her fingers graze my wrist as she set her glass down. But in that moment, the silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was electric, alive, charged with everything unsaid. The sky had turned dusky when she finally rose, gathering our glasses. You should go, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I stood, hesitating. She met my eyes for longer than was necessary, her hands still full. I almost reached to take the glasses from her, an excuse to touch her fingers again, but she stepped back. Tomorrow? I asked. Her lips parted, then closed. She nodded once, slowly. And then, before I could stop myself, my hand brushed her shoulder, barely there, a question disguised as a gesture. She froze, not pulling away, just looking at me with something I couldn't name. Neither of us said goodbye. But the bond was there now, solid, undeniable. It was raining the next time I saw her. Not a storm, just a steady drizzle that painted the garden in silvers and greens. Claire stood beneath the eaves, arms folded, watching the drops collect in the cracks of stone. You'll get soaked, she said as I stepped through the gate. I don't mind. She raised an eyebrow, but didn't send me away. Instead, she pulled me under the narrow shelter with her, our shoulders brushing because there wasn't enough space. The scent of rain mixed with the faint trace of her shampoo, and suddenly the air felt thinner than it should. You shouldn't keep coming here, she murmured. Then why open the gate? Her lips parted, but before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the table behind us. She glanced at it, expression tightening. I caught a glimpse of the name, Mark, before she flipped it over, silencing the call. Friend? I asked. She didn't look at me. Something like that. The tension lingered thick as the damp air. She reached for a mug of tea that had long gone cold, lifting it just for the sake of holding something. Her hand trembled slightly, and I wanted to steady it, to take it from her. But I didn't. Instead, I said, Do people ever come by? Sometimes. Her voice was steady, but her eyes flicked toward the street beyond the fence. Neighbors. Friends. People who think they know me. I nodded. My chest felt tight. The risk of being seen wasn't abstract anymore, it was right there, pressing on us both. We moved inside to escape the rain, into her living room that smelled faintly of wood and lavender. The space was small, warm, books stacked in uneven piles, a lamp casting golden light against the walls. She gestured for me to sit, then changed her mind and sank onto the couch herself. I sat too. Too close. The silence built again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It pulsed, like a heartbeat between us. I found myself watching her hands, how she rubbed her thumb across the rim of her mug, how her nails still carried faint traces of earth. "You're staring," she said quietly. I looked away, heat rising in my face. "Sorry." But then she did something unexpected. She reached out, brushed a drop of rain from my hair, her fingers lingering a second too long. My breath caught. She must have heard it. The moment stretched. Her eyes locked on mine, searching, waiting for me to move, or daring me not to. I leaned, only slightly, enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath. My hand hovered over hers, not touching, just there. And then, a knock at the door. Sharp. Sudden. We both jolted back. She pressed a finger to her lips, wide-eyed, before standing. Her steps were brisk but not hurried, her voice even when she answered. "A neighbor, asking about the storm drains." "Nothing urgent." I sat frozen, heart pounding, until the door clicked shut again. She leaned against it for a moment, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath the whole time. When she returned, her composure had cracks. She sank back onto the couch, closer this time, as though the interruption had stripped away her defenses. Our knees touched, either of us moving. "This can't happen," she whispered. "I know." But neither of us shifted. The space between us, once guarded, had collapsed. My hand brushed against hers, by accident or design, I couldn't tell. She didn't pull away. We sat there, not kissing, not speaking, but pulled closer than ever, caught in the gravity of something we both pretended to resist. It was late when I went over again. Too late to have an excuse. The street was quiet, the windows on her house dark except for the faint glow in the living room. I almost turned back. Almost. But then the door opened before I could knock. "You shouldn't keep doing this," Claire whispered. "Then stop letting me in." The challenge slipped out before I could pull it back. For a moment, I thought she'd shut the door in my face. Instead, she stepped aside. The room was dim, lit only by the lamp on the end table. She moved toward the couch, arms folded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. I stayed standing, pulse hammering in my throat. "You're too young for this," she said finally. "Too young for what?" Her laugh was small, bitter. "For me." The words should have cut, but instead they pulled me closer. "You don't get to decide what I want." Her eyes snapped to mine at that, sharp, startled. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked away, brushing hair back from her face with a trembling hand. I moved before I thought, reaching out, pushing the stray strand gently behind her ear. My fingers lingered against her cheek. Warm. Softer than I'd imagined. She went still, as if the smallest move might break something fragile. "This is wrong," she breathed. "Then tell me to stop." Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. Instead, she leaned, barely, just enough that I could feel the heat of her body near mine. The air between us was charged, every breath sharp and uneven. I sat beside her close enough that our knees pressed together. She shifted, like she wanted to put space back between us but couldn't. Her hand gripped the cushion, white-knuckled, until I placed mine over it. She didn't pull away. "You don't understand what people would say," she murmured. "I don't care." "You should." Her voice cracked on the last word, and she pressed her palm against her forehead, eyes shutting tight. For a second, she looked tired, worn down by the weight of something I couldn't name. And then she let her hand drop, turning toward me with an intensity that froze me in place. "You make me feel." She stopped, breath catching. "Things I shouldn't let myself feel." The silence that followed burned. I could hear every detail: the tick of the clock on the wall, the faint rush of cars far down the street, her breathing shallow and quick. I leaned closer. Close enough that my knee brushed hers again. Close enough that when I spoke, my voice was low at her ear. Then don't stop. Her hand came up, hesitant, almost afraid, but it found my wrist, holding it lightly. Not pushing me away. Not pulling me closer. Just holding. Her eyes locked on mine, searching, wavering on the edge of something neither of us could take back. My thumb brushed her knuckles, and she shivered, whether from fear or desire, I couldn't tell. I leaned in, closer still, the world narrowing to the warmth of her skin, the faint smell of lavender, the sharp intake of her breath. Her lips parted. And then the sound. A car door slamming outside. Voices on the street. We both froze. Her eyes darted to the window, then back to me. Neither of us moved, our faces still inches apart, breath mingling. This can't, she started. But I cut her off, whispering, It already has. The words hung there, dangerous, irreversible. The kiss hovered between us, waiting, just one heartbeat away. The next day, I tried not to go over. I told myself I'd give her space, that last night had already pressed too close. But by evening, I found myself standing at the fence again, restless, waiting for the light in her window to flicker on. When it did, I slipped through the gate. Claire was inside, pacing. Her phone sat abandoned on the table, the screen lit with a half-finished message. She didn't notice me at first. Her hand raked through her hair, her steps uneven. When she finally saw me in the doorway, she froze. You can't just walk in, she said, but her voice lacked heat. Then why don't you lock the gate? She didn't answer. Instead, she gestured sharply toward the phone. He knows. Who? Her arms crossed, tightening against her chest. Mark. He was outside last night. He saw. She stopped, biting down hard on the word. He asked me today. I lied. My stomach clenched. I stepped further inside, closing the door softly behind me. What did you tell him? That you were just helping in the garden. Her laugh was brittle. Helping. God. She turned from me, moving to the window. I followed, close enough that I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her breath came shallow. What does he matter? I asked. He matters because people talk, she snapped, spinning back toward me. Because I live here, in this neighborhood, with eyes everywhere. Because I'm old enough to know what happens when secrets get out. Her words cut, but her eyes betrayed her. Wide, glassy, searching mine like she hated what she wanted. I reached for her without thinking, fingers grazing her arm. She flinched, but not away, closer, like the contact broke something inside her. You're trembling, I whispered. Of course I am. Her voice cracked. You don't know what you're doing. Then tell me, I said. Tell me to leave, and I'll go. But she didn't. She just stood there, shaking, caught between pushing me away and pulling me in. I brushed my hand higher, from her arm to her shoulder, then slowly, carefully, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She closed her eyes at the touch, breath shuddering out of her. You make it impossible, she whispered. Her phone buzzed again. Loud. Sharp. We both jumped. She grabbed it quickly, staring at the screen. Another message, another call she didn't answer. Mark? I asked. She nodded once, then set the phone face down, harder than she meant to. Her hands trembled as she turned back to me. You should hate me for this, she said. Why? Because I knew. Her words rushed out, low and raw. I saw the way you looked at me weeks ago. I should have stopped it then. But I didn't. I let you keep coming back. I wanted you to. Her confession knocked the air out of me. All the restraint, the hesitation, the denials, undone in a breath. I stepped closer, so close my chest nearly brushed hers. Say it again. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her hands clenched at her sides, then released. She looked at me, eyes fierce and fragile all at once. "I wanted you to," she whispered. The silence after burned hotter than any touch. My hand rose again, hovering at her cheek, waiting. She didn't move away. Her body leaned, barely perceptible, but enough. A decision was made then, unspoken. We both knew what was coming. Her eyes darted to my mouth, then back to my eyes. She inhaled sharply, trembling. My thumb brushed her jaw, and she shivered beneath it. The fear was still there, but so was the pull, stronger now, undeniable. I leaned in. Close enough that my lips hovered just above hers. Close enough to taste the moment breaking open. And that's where we hung, on the edge of no return, both of us knowing the fall was inevitable. Her breath trembled against my lips, her body still taut with hesitation, but not moving away. I could feel every second stretching thinner, like a string ready to snap. "We can't," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her. "Then tell me to stop," I murmured back. She didn't. The silence was louder than words, thick with everything we'd both tried to deny. My hand cupped her jaw, my thumb brushing lightly along her skin. She leaned into it, just barely, but enough to make the ground tilt beneath us. Her eyes flicked closed, then open again, restless. "If I let this happen," she breathed, "I won't know how to stop." "Then don't." The last thread snapped. Her hand rose to my chest, not pushing, just holding, gripping the fabric as if steadying herself. I bent closer, and this time she met me halfway. Our lips touched, tentative at first, then deeper, the kind of kiss that feels both forbidden and inevitable. It wasn't polished. It wasn't practiced. It was messy, uncertain, charged with years of loneliness pressing against the heat of now. Her fingers curled at the back of my neck, pulling me closer, even as a faint sound escaped her throat, a mix of fear and want. We broke apart only for breath, foreheads resting together, air ragged between us. "This is madness," she whispered. "I don't care." She laughed then, a small, broken sound. "You should." But she kissed me again anyway, softer this time, lingering like she wanted to memorize the shape of it. I held her waist, feeling the tremor in her body, the way she leaned just enough to let me know she'd chosen this too. For a long moment, the world outside disappeared. No neighbors, no voices, no mark, no rules. Just us, tangled in a choice we couldn't untangle. When she finally pulled back, her hand lingered on my cheek. Her eyes searched mine, fierce and fragile all at once. "I was so sure I'd forgotten how to feel this," she said quietly. "And then you showed up at my gate." I swallowed hard. "And now?" "Now," she exhaled slowly, as if the answer carried weight. "Now I know I can't go back to pretending." The clarity landed between us, not neat, not easy, but undeniable. Whatever came next, we both knew the truth. We had crossed the line, and neither of us regretted it. She leaned into me once more, resting her head against my shoulder. I wrapped an arm around her, not to claim, not to conquer, just to hold. For the first time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt shared. And in that quiet, we understood each other completely. The next morning, I expected distance. Regret. A slammed door, maybe. Instead, Claire was already in the garden when I came by, kneeling in the damp soil, hands deep among the roots. The storm had passed, but everything still carried the smell of rain. She looked up when she heard the gate creak. Not startled. Not angry. Just tired, and softer somehow. "You keep coming back," she said. "I will," I answered before she could stop me. Her lips pressed into something between a smile and a sigh. She brushed dirt from her palms, then sat back on her heels, watching me. "Do you know what they'll say?" "Yes." "And you don't care?" "Do you?" That caught her. She looked down, digging her fingers absently into the damp earth. For a long moment, all I heard was the birds shaking water from their wings, the distant hum of traffic. Then she rose, brushing off her knees, and stepped closer. When she reached me, she didn't speak. She just placed her hand on my chest, steadying herself there, her palm warm through my shirt. Her other hand was still streaked with soil, and without thinking, I covered it with mine. Our fingers tangled, dirt and all. "I should be smarter than this," she whispered. "Then let me be the foolish one," I said. Her laugh broke out, quick and shaky, but real. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. The closeness wasn't rushed this time, not heavy with fear or denial. It was simple, necessary. We stood like that for a while, letting the quiet settle around us. No storm. No phone buzzing. No interruptions. Just the two of us, breathing the same air, finally unhidden. When she pulled back, she kissed me, not desperate, not messy, but certain. A slow press of lips that carried more than words could hold. Her hand slipped into mine after, fingers lacing together. "This doesn't get easier," she said softly. "I don't need easy." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. And for the first time, I knew she believed me. We walked back to the bench at the far corner of the garden, the same spot where everything had begun. The wood was damp, peeling, but we sat anyway, shoulders touching, hands still locked. She leaned against me, head against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, drawing her in. Neither of us spoke for a long time. We didn't have to. The garden was quiet except for the drip of water from the branches, the smell of wet earth rising like a promise. And in that stillness, everything we'd feared, the age gap, the neighbors, the risk, felt smaller than the warmth of her against me, her hand holding mine like she never meant to let go. For the first time, the future didn't scare me. For the first time, she let herself stay.